this episode of Rich Tomorrow, a large, middle-aged man will discuss why he is disappointed in the newly released Nintendo Switch 2. A man.
Obama.
So it's time for some shameless plugs. Plug number one, this Friday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I'll be having a marathon stream where I'll be playing games like Grand Theft Auto 4 on the PC. You're excited for it. You know you want to be there. Anyway, I'll be streaming on this channel, so make sure you sub, and I'll see you on Friday. Also, number two, besides me being a large man, I do have an ASMR channel, and as of when you're seeing this video, I will have a new video uploaded to the ASMR channel. It's called Tech25 ASMR. Make sure you click the link below in the description and subscribe there to hear my smooth, buttery voice. So anyway, if you have watched my channel or have watched my live streams, you will know that I was excited for the Switch 2. Now, when I saw like From Software was supporting the Switch 2 and I saw the third-party support, the specs seemed like a good bump. It seemed like Nintendo cared about things like 120 hertz on the built-in screen. Here's my Switch 2. Hi. HDR. We'll get into that more in a minute. And I was like, cool, man. They realize what people are going to want in the Switch 2. We see that other hardware that's like the Switch 2 has come out on the market, and Nintendo realized they had to compete with that. I was actually afraid. Look, it's Nintendo. I am justified to be afraid of things like this. Like they were just going to go with like, they were going to do a decent spec bump, but they were going to do like 720p 60. Or I was hoping that they were going to do 720p 120 hertz or 120 FPS. We actually got more than that, kind of. But anyway, so I was hyped for the Switch 2. It looked like it had a lot of potential. It looked like, okay, Nintendo listened to what we wanted from the Switch 1. We just wanted a Switch 2, and they delivered that. We wanted a more powerful Switch 2, I mean to say, and they delivered that. And when it comes to that, in terms of the spec bump from the original Switch, yes, I feel like this is a worthy upgrade to the console. Okay, it's not that I have any issues. Well, the screen, but it's not like I have any issues with what they did in terms of upgrading to a more powerful Switch 2. It's definitely more of a spec bump and more capable in terms of what it can do compared to like the PS5 and Series X. Like we will see games that can run on here. It's not like it's as far behind as the original Switch was compared to the PS4 and Xbox One. So good all around. Hell, even a developer came out and said the GPU is like just behind a Series S, and the CPU cores in here, which are ARM cores, they're a little bit more capable than the PS4. Kind of a want, but nonetheless, it's still a huge bump from the original Switch, and I'm happy with the specs that we got delivered. But okay, now that I got the good news over with, this is kind of like a personal perspective video, but it's a personal perspective video that you might think of these things. So before you go buy a Switch 2, I wanted to put them out there. And I wanted to say why, even though I was very hyped for the Switch 2 in the beginning, why I'm not as hyped now. And I came to some realizations. So even though I don't hate the screen on the Switch 2, I think some of the complaints about it are overblown. I do see the blur. I do see where the screen has more blur than the original Switch screen. The HDR, due to it getting only to like 420 nits or around that range, even if it's slightly higher, that's not really an HDR screen. Let's just keep it real. I do like that the screen can go up to 120 hertz. So maybe if they figure out a way, probably a pipe dream, to get like the next Call of Duty on the Switch 2 and to get it in multiplayer, if they cut down the graphics to run at 120 hertz, would be awesome. But here's the problem, though. When you have competitors, let's face it, like the ROG Ally X, the Lenovo Legion Go, those are competitors to this. The brainchild for those systems, without question, came from the Switch. So the Switch 2 is competing with those, even if they don't have as big of a market share. But when your competitors have better screens, even though the ROG Ally X does not have an HDR screen, it does raise concern. And hell, even though you technically have HDR Nintendo, it's not really HDR due to the fact that the screen can't get bright enough. I know you were looking to cut costs, but the strangest thing is that your previous gen console, the Switch OLED, by the way, that revision, has a much nicer screen. Yes, it's only 720p, 60 hertz, but man, that OLED does make a difference. And then hell, let's get into the OLED version of the Steam Deck. That's HDR on top of it too, and man, do HDR games pop on there. Granted, the screen resolution is only 1280 by 800, but I hate to say it, I actually would rather have that screen. It just, the HDR on there is so good. I would be if they put it 720p, 120 hertz OLED panel. Actually, the Steam Deck OLED it's a 90 hertz panel too, so you do get a slightly higher refresh rate than the base Steam Deck. If they put a 720p, if that would cut costs for them, which I'm sure it would, 120 hertz OLED panel on here. Oh, now, of course, let's keep it real. They're going to come out with a Switch 2 OLED. They would be insane, Nintendo, not to. But when you're competing with those other consoles that I mentioned out of the gate, I feel like even though the screen is adequate isn't good enough when other consoles in the same price point are giving better features and better screens. Oh, okay. Slight correction. The Steam Deck OLED starts at $550. That's the 512 gigabyte model. Then for $649 US dollars, they have the 1 terabyte model. But the 512 gigabyte one for $549 is only 100 more than the Nintendo Switch, and you could play your PC games on there. You have access to the Steam library, and a lot of times the games are cheaper on there. And while I'm saying all this too, talking about the Steam Deck and everything, that's not what I'm not trying to sell you, I mean to say, on those platforms. Okay, if you never want to play PC gaming, that's not what I'm here for. I encourage you play on your preferred platform. If you only want to play on Nintendo hardware, then if that makes you happy, then so be it. That's fine. If you only want to play on PlayStation 5, why did I say that like that? If you only want to play on PlayStation 5, then Godspeed, only play on PlayStation 5. But what I'm trying to make you understand is, unless you absolutely have to have Nintendo Switch exclusives or Nintendo exclusives, you could get the same experiences that will probably perform better on hardware that's not that much more expensive, or you could get it for the same price if there's sales. And here's another thing that irks me about the Nintendo Switch 2. All of their competitors, Nintendo's competitors, have Hall effect joysticks where they use magnets instead of potentiometers to actually read the analog stick, which is now the input. And they're not indestructible like a lot of advertisements would lead you to believe, but having Hall effect joysticks and Hall effect triggers would make wear and tear significantly better. The analog sticks would last a hell of a lot longer. But Nintendo didn't do that. As a matter of fact, iFixit looked at these Joy-Con 2s that are on the Switch 2. Well, that would kind of make sense. And they are using basically the same tech in there as the original Joy-Cons. They look identical. So these are going to absolutely have Joy-Con drift. $450 console. All of their competitors, mostly I should say actually, are using Hall effect analog sticks. Nintendo's not, so drift is definitely going to be a thing again. Now, the one up that I was talking that the Switch 2 has, that if you have an ROG Ally or a Lenovo Legion Go or Go S or whatever, if you want to replace the sticks in there, make sure to get your screwdriver out on the Switch 2. Yes, it's expensive. That doesn't justify the fact they went cheap, Nintendo, but you go out and buy another Joy-Con. Still really expensive debacle, but at least your system is still usable. Whereas if you don't want to open up and unscrew the back of your ROG Ally, Ally X, or Lenovo Legion Go or Steam Deck, well, once that stick goes, I guess you're going to get a new system. But nonetheless, I'm still very disappointed that they went the cheap route. Like, come on, Nintendo. And now, one of the things as a person who kind of lost interest in the Switch halfway through its life cycle because other hardware which played the third-party games that I was buying for the Switch came to market. Now that I've been playing the Switch 2 again, I'm like, oh, joy. I have to wait until developers port games over that are already on PC or that already are on PS5, or for the 3 people that are still playing on the Xbox consoles. Microsoft, you had so much potential with the 9th gen, so much, and you blew it.
You blew it. Bish.
But getting back to essentially port begging, it's when you have other platforms. I'm not even just talking like the Steam Deck and the Lenovo Legion Go. You're just, when games come out, they come out on those platforms. It's guaranteed, and mostly, usually a platform doesn't get a delay. When games come out, you know they're going to be on the platform. You know that Steam is going to have the game. You know the PlayStation Store is going to have the game. You know that Xbox is going to have the game on their storefront. It'll be ready to go there. You don't have to even think twice that the third-party support will be there. I know a lot of people are like, oh, Nintendo, it's all about first party. But no, one of the reasons the Switch was wildly successful was because it got third-party support too. It was the combination of the two. Now, my point being is that in the beginning, when the Switch first came out, it was the only show in town doing this. So I know that the Steam Deck did not do the numbers of the original Switch. Like, I get that. But when the Switch first came out, where else were you going to play Doom 2016? I know it came out in 2017 for the Switch, but that was mind-blowing at the time. Before the Switch, you were just like used to, when you got portable consoles, you were getting either a more compact experience or a watered down experience because the hardware couldn't handle the same gameplay elements in portable consoles, dedicated portable consoles. When the Switch came out, that turned upside down, and that the Switch changed everything. And you were getting games like The Witcher 3 and Doom Eternal, Zombie Army 4, Wolfenstein 2, the New Colossus, a sloppy port, but nonetheless, it was there. And No Man's Sky. Now, all these games didn't come out when the Switch first launched, but my point being is that to have essentially those games, these AAA games that were also on the PS4 and Xbox One on a tablet with controllers attached to it, was unheard of at the time. It was revolutionary, and that made people really excited for the original Switch. But now in 2025, the same people that would have to wait for ports to come to the Switch of those AAA games that were on the PS4 and Xbox One, now you have other options. You have other options from competitors. Again, Steam themselves. There's even rumors they're starting to work on the successor to the Steam Deck, where it's going to be, again, more powerful. You have GPD Win. I'm not going to let me name a different company now, who makes a bunch of crazy products that allow you to play AAA games from Steam and other digital distribution platforms on the go. Yes, these are more expensive, but the Steam Deck really isn't. And getting a non-OLED Steam Deck puts you in the same ballpark as the Nintendo Switch. And when it comes to being in portable mode, from what I'm seeing, the Steam Deck, even with how old it is now, could actually trade blows with a lot of the games that are on the Nintendo Switch that are third party. The Switch 2 does hold its own, and yes, its GPU is more in line with the Series S, which makes it more powerful, but nonetheless, that's still a capable console, the vanilla Steam Deck, and you have access to plenty of third-party games. So long as the Steam Deck is capable of running it, you could play many third-party games, since virtually all of them come to Steam at some point. And so long as your portable PC handheld could handle the game, especially if you go over to a Windows handheld, you could pretty much play any game you want to, so long as the hardware is capable of it. You don't have to port bag. If you stick to the Nintendo Switch and you're looking to play both third-party and first-party games, you're going to just have to be patient and hope a game that comes out on other platforms eventually gets ported to the Switch too, which back in the day when you had no other choice was fine. Now that you have other choices, it makes the Switch 2 less appealing to people that aren't just diehard Nintendo fans that want to play every first-party game. And the last thing I'll talk about, and this is where until Nintendo fixes their policies, I didn't realize they were going to be this ridiculous. I wouldn't have actually bought this if I knew they were going to be. I knew about the end user license agreement, but they also had a similar one for the Wii, and they never did the crap that they're doing now. So it's like, it's a nothing burger. They changed the end user license agreement. They didn't enforce it with the Wii, even though, it was a different time on the internet. They're not going to really do that with the Switch 2. They're just looking to cover their asses. No, they're losing their minds, Nintendo. They are bricking people's Switches, essentially, blocking any access they have to their Switch on the internet, and they can't play games. I actually had a subscriber who I did an interview with, which if you watch the end of this video, I'll have the end cap show that video, click on it, go watch it, that he had his Switch 2 banned and Nintendo wouldn't reverse it, and he had no idea what he did. He has none. He doesn't know if he's like, listen, if it's something I said, if I get a Switch 2 in the future, I would like to know what not to say so I don't get banned again. It's even ridiculous that has to be a thing. Like, what are the naughty words, or what is something that I could have done that they don't let you know? And then on top of it, okay, even if you did something against the end user license agreement, you're going to just tell someone that it's not reversible. Oh, that sucks. Your $450 piece of hardware is completely unusable for good, and we won't tell you why. No, you're spending $450 to lease a console from them. That's not ownership. Again, with the Steam Deck or something else, I'm not condoning piracy. That's not what I'm doing here. But if I want to put emulators on my Steam Deck, is Valve going to come and take my Switch away? No, they wouldn't do that because they don't make Switches. But would Gabe Newell come to my house and take my Steam Deck? Or would Steam IP ban me and not let me download my games? Or just say, hey, your Steam Deck is a brick now. You could go into Windows, but that's it. Can't do anything else. No, that would never happen. I own the hardware. Nintendo is saying, hey, give us $450 and we'll give you the privilege of using the hardware. And if we want to stop you from using it, that's it. And we won't explain to you why. Like, I know other companies too, like Sony, if you mod it, they could ban you. Okay, but they are not as egregious as Nintendo. Nintendo's banning people, not even telling them. Nintendo is banning people for their brother changing their name to Twink Link. Like, that's ban-worthy, perma-ban console-worthy, Nintendo. So that just kind of sucked the friggin' wind out of my sails for the Switch 2. Is that the right saying? Whatever, I'm going with it. Oh. And then on top of it, the battery life is actually slightly worse than the original Switch. I was hoping that would be the biggest selling point to me. I've talked about this before where, hey, it's an ARM processor in here, low wattage when it's in portable mode. Obviously, the battery life would be better than like the x86 based handhelds from Asus and Lenovo and Valve. Nope. It could be as low as 2 hours. And I've noticed the battery goes on this fairly quick. And I've tried another Switch 2 and it's the same thing. It's not abhorrent, but it goes down quickly. It does. So that was what I was hoping for. That was actually my biggest thing. It's like, all right, I have ways to play third-party games with other handhelds that I have. But maybe because this is ARM-based and it's going to be more efficient, that I'll get certain third-party games on here and get better battery life. Nope, it's not a thing. So I don't think right now unless you absolutely have to play Donkey Kong Bonanza, which I have played, I will say, and it is friggin' awesome. But is it a reason to buy a system? I'll leave that up to you. But with how Nintendo's handling the Switch 2 end user license agreement, and with the other things I mentioned, it just makes me take pause with the Switch 2 and realize, all right, maybe it isn't that exciting for me. It's not 2017 anymore. And I have other options to play games that I would have been excited for that I could only play on the Nintendo Switch 2. This is Rich Tomorrow signing out. Check out my ASMR channel. Link below in the description. Have a good one.